Afternoon, and welcome once again to the weekly Android Developer Office Hours. This is your EMEA edition coming to you in the middle of the afternoon in lovely, sunny, or almost sunny London, UK, where I am visiting from Munich and am joined by my local cohorts, Rich and Nick and Matt, and also joined by Roman from New York, New York. We are here to take on any and all questions related to Android development. So let's see what's going on.
Yeah, as usual, we won't be making any announcements on roadmaps, future product releases, things like that, so please don't ask, because we'll just say no. If you want to join the Hangout live, come in and ask questions, then please just comment on the thread on the Plus Android Developers Google Plus page, and I'll add you in, and you can come and ask live. If not, add the questions into the moderator or onto the thread directly, and we'll answer them live on here. So, we might as well get started. We do actually have one person live in the Hangout already, Yossi.
Hi.
If you actually have a question, hey Yossi.
Yeah, two questions. First of all, about the Play Services API and all the jar and when it should come out and we can use it lively, if you can have an answer for that. And secondly, about fragments, but it can wait until you answer the first one.
Well, the answer to the Play Services API question's pretty quick, because that is a future roadmap question. We don't have an answer for you right now. We can't comment on that. So if you just move on to the fragments, we'll hopefully help you with that one.
Okay, I'm trying to do a fragment, a dialog fragment, that should be a pop-up above our two pane fragments. And I want the view to stop, to wait, and so the user can select the account needed. You know, I wanted to do something like that. Select the Google account, but if I'll do the dialog fragment, it continues to the next fragment and won't wait. Is there any option to hold the UI until the user waits for the selection? What's the best option to do it?
Can you rephrase the part of the question where you're saying it goes on to the next?
Okay, I'm trying to use Account Manager to get all the Google accounts and show a pop-up screens for the user to choose which Google account I can use to do OAuth with the API. And oh, okay.
Sorry about that. We just dropped out for a second there.
Okay. Should I repeat the question again?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah, okay, from the start. I'm using Account Manager to do OAuth for my application to get all the contacts from the Google besides the synced ones. So the user will get a pop-up in a dialog fragment saying which Google account he wants to use, or maybe add a new one, and then the next fragment should be where I'm scraping out the entire address book or contacts. But the problem is when I'm popping out the first fragment, I'm getting simultaneously moving forward to the next fragment. And I want to know what should I do
The UI thread, right? I mean, the dialog fragment, also, I mean, like the interaction with the dialog fragment also happens on the UI thread. You know, in before fragments, what you would do is probably you'd have a separate activity that would have a dialog theme.
Yeah.
Basically, the activity underneath it would be in the started but paused state. So and I don't want to answer the question straight on here because I think it may depend on a couple of things. But what I would do is instead of using a dialog altogether, I'd have a kind of a first step that would be a full screen activity or a full screen fragment in that activity that would let you select an account. Once you select an account, it either goes on to the next activity or just you know, pops the account selection fragment from the core layout and shows the next fragment. So basically, my short answer to this would be: don't use a dialog fragment. Just use an inline you know, account selection fragment. Any of you guys have any other thoughts?
Looks fine.
Yes, that's good. Like it.
Okay.
Is there like a a reason you aren't doing that, or is there like kind of just the basic?
No, what I'm trying to do is make a more generic approach because I want to make the user options to be like I can choose a Google account, I can choose a Twitter account, I can choose a Facebook account, and so on and so on. And I'm going to Account Manager, getting all the accounts by types, and each time I'm popping out a selector for all the appropriate accounts, and the user can also add the new account according to the type he chose.
Mhm.
But then when I'm popping out the dialog, sometimes it's just doesn't wait till the user selects and just moves on to the next selector fragment. What I did was divided the dialog to two options, and then popped up the window with the dialog fragment, and just waited until the return from the OAuth, and then I moved on. But it's not so good because sometimes you see the UI thread hangs for a bit, and that's why I wanted to know if there's any other options to do it.
Yeah, I mean, just in case, I don't know if I followed this entirely, but just in case you're kind of assuming that there's blocking involved, like when you pop up the dialog fragment, like kind of that's going to block the function that triggered the dialog fragment that called the show method. That doesn't actually block. So what I would do instead is, I mean, assuming you have to use a dialog fragment, and like I said earlier, you probably shouldn't use a dialog in this case, but assuming you had to do it, you shouldn't wait on, or you shouldn't have kind of, or assume any sort of blocking operations. Just use a series of callbacks. So when the don't actually add the next fragment until you get the callback that the user has.
That's what I did eventually, but I wanted to know if there is a better option than that, because the callback, sometimes when you get the callback, you see the dialog still hangs about half a second until you get to the new fragment and so on. So that's why I wanted to be a bit more precise on the UI and not be so much laggy.
Yeah, I mean, if it's hanging, it might be like you are blocking the UI side with something. Off the top of my head, I can't think of.
Yeah, I'd probably instrument that and try and find out what's going on during that. So use systrace, not systrace, traceview. Find out what's going on during that time, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's in dialog fragment, you may want to file a bug. Like if you're not doing anything yourself on the UI thread and the dialog is hanging on the screen for half a second, it sounds like it might be a bug somewhere in dialog fragment.
Well, you want to make sure you move all the logic, like on the click handler on the dialog. So the first thing it does is hide it, and any like business logic that happens after the click happens like in the callback. So that, there's nothing stopping the.
Yeah. I'm doing an ASIC task on the callback, so the callback returns to the holder activity, and then it triggers an event about half a second. That's why I'm trying to see if that's the real issue here. Okay, that's nice.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Cheers, thanks for coming in today.
Bye-bye.
And during that question, we've also been joined by Alex Lucas, some other guy. Back in the room.
You mean Zach Galifianakis?
Right.
Any one of those names he will answer to. So feel free to ask questions aimed at him as well. I don't know what that means. What are your special subjects, Alex?
I like Android.
And ask Android questions to Alex.
Before Android, I was on the analytics team, so I've covered a lot of stuff on implementing analytics in Android, also accessibility and just general frameworky questions.
Excellent. So if you want to ask questions about Android, or Google TV, please jump in. Hey, Chrome cushion.
Yeah,
nice.
Cool.
Yeah, feel free to jump in. I'll have a quick look on the thread. I wonder if people are on holiday. We usually have quite a lot of questions on the thread by now.
It's a holiday today.
It is in Germany?
Yes, in Bavaria.
In Bavaria, there is a public holiday.
Today is Assumption Day, also known
Where you
as
People make a
poor
lot of
assumptions?
assumptions. Right.
About your,
also known
like
as
that
Maria
one?
Himmelfahrt.
But
Ding. Okay, in which case, let's have a look through some of the moderator questions.
Yes.
The first moderator question is asking about something, future product release / announcement
when will we be able to add our own location providers?
Oh, you can.
Well, I believe, and I haven't verified this myself, I haven't created a sample app to do it, but I believe that if you check the allow mock locations checkbox somewhere in your system, you can actually install third-party providers. Having said that, I don't know what the APIs are to do so.
Where's that allow modifications?
Somewhere in development.
Settings, applications, development.
Yeah. I mean, the reason being, like, I mean, you don't want just any app to willy-nilly add, like, a fake GPS provider, right? Because then, you know, any apps that rely on GPS or whatever for example, you know, geofencing or, you know, making sure that content is restricted by geography. If somebody's using that, then you basically get fake results. So I believe that's why it's hidden behind or disabled by default and enableable for development purposes. Having said that, I honestly don't know how to create a provider. I know the emulator has kind of a fake provider because it needs to let you specify GPS coordinates manually. But yeah, there's got to be an API somewhere. If not, then don't know.
Well, you were definitely right on about the developer options, because there it is.
Yeah.
Developer options and settings.
We should probably double check if there is an API to. I mean, you could probably extend the location provider. Having said that, I don't know how you would register one. Yeah, have a look at the API if that exists.
Maybe I should dust out my old Bluetooth GPS puck.
Excellent. Okay, the next question on the moderator is, how can I create an add-on dictionary? I am bilingual and find that anything I type in my other language is automatically edited. This is very frustrating. Find the options in language input, Android keyboard, add-on dictionaries. Anybody know about add-on dictionaries?
Add-on. I've turned on a couple alternative languages just for typing input, but only the ones that came stock with the system.
Me too. We go to where he says.
Personal dictionaries?
You added one, would you be able to still type in a different language in the keyboard and work out which one you're going for?
You tell it which one you want to switch to. So there's a little
There's
globe
just a
icon.
button, yeah.
Oh, add-on dictionaries. There it is.
Add-on dictionaries under text correction.
Oh, this is, you know, this may be a new API in either ice cream sandwich or jelly bean.
Oh yeah.
This may be new. So, I mean, one way we could do it, if this, assuming this is new, because for example, the emoji that was never there before. Anyway,
Yeah, that's definitely jelly bean.
so if it's new, we could probably just take a look at the API diff between jelly bean and ice cream sandwich, just to see. I mean, I don't know if we should do it now. If you guys want? We have time. We probably have time.
But if someone wants to take a look at it in the background whilst we go on to the next question,
Yeah, let's go into that. I'll
we
take a look
can
at it.
come back and continue. Are you keeping check
Researching live on the air.
Yeah, it's just that kind of crap. Okay. Have you considered, this is from Kenny Dude in Teesside, have you considered making developers.android.com a community editable like a wiki? I certainly haven't. Have you?
I've thought about it.
You thought about it? What did you think?
It's hard. I mean, besides which, we already have something like that. I mean, there's like Stack Overflow and many other sites like it. We have our forum as well. So
We do have a very hard-working, dedicated team of tech writers.
Oh wow, check this out.
Sorry about that. We just dropped out the Hangout just briefly there for a second.
Nothing.
I don't know. I think that actually it's
Okay.
when you actually have something that has a definitive right and wrong, and you have somebody who is making it definitively right or wrong, it kind of makes a lot of sense for them to be the ones to document that.
Yeah, I can understand why you want it as well, because there are things in the documentation that get out of date, and people file bugs, and we update them and things, and it would be good to have more manpower behind it. But as Sparky says, yeah, it is nice to have the definitive guide there, and we do have other sources on the Google groups, Stack Overflow, etc.
Mention something about the add-on dictionary. overview. Provider of user-defined words for input methods to use for predictive text input. Applications and input methods may add words into the dictionary. So it seems like this will just add something to your existing dictionary. So you can create an app that basically just, you know, if you have 20 words you want to add, just kind of like an add-on dictionary manager almost. Maybe even imports things from the cloud or whatnot.
We should probably write a sample app or an AU class for that.
That sounds good. Pretty good idea.
We even already have a dictionary sample. We already have a dictionary sample. We could extend it.
Yeah.
But there's probably something that's specific to Jelly Bean, and I haven't found it yet. Oh well. Wait, Andrew. So yeah, that's probably all we could say at this point on the topic. Okay.
Okay. Ooh. Anyone want to take a look at that one there?
How is code.google.com bug tracker for Android handled? Oh, is that the one we're talking about, or the other one?
Yeah, this one. Yes, yeah.
Right. There are tons of very, very old issues that are now
Not
now even assigned. Others are fixed, but the ticket is still open. Yes, well, curating the bug trackers that we have internal to the company is hard enough, let alone curating ones that are external facing as well. What with, 2 or 3 or 5 or 700,000 users all wanting to contribute their own bugs.
The best way, if there's a bug on the public bug tracker that you want us to get a better look at, is to link to it and make sure that it gets upvoted and starred a lot, so that it'll sort of float to the top of the stack for us. We don't necessarily go by the age of the bug so much as the importance of the bug, and the number of stars that the bug receives is the main metric that we use for that.
Yeah, definitely look for a question that already touches on what you want and upload that rather than forking a new one. I will say also that I believe that list actually does influence our development course in some cases. I suspect that a large part of the reason why we made such leaps and bounds of improvement in bidirectional text input for Ice Cream Sandwich and Jelly Bean was because of those bugs that had sat up at the top of the queue and collected thousands and thousands of votes.
Right. And that was not thousands and thousands of bugs saying the same thing. That was a couple of bugs with thousands and thousands of votes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so reconciling bugs we fix internally with ones that have been raised externally is also tricky. People try and do it. But obviously the Android team are fixing quite a lot of bugs with each release, and they can't go through the entire bug tracker seeing if someone's actually raised that externally and then closing it off. So there are definitely bugs in the tracker that are fixed where the ticket is still open. Okay. Someone's asking whether they can ask a question. Yeah, you can. Just come in. We'd love you to come in and ask the question on Media APIs live, and we'll see what we can do.
We're not really here to answer questions.
We're
here to really dodge questions. That's
mostly.
We've got a new question just popped in. I need to create an app which will play videos from YouTube and show external subtitles for the played video. Can you please advise me on how to start, or if it's even possible?
So, yeah, there's a talk at Google I/O which is about doing just this. So there's a new player library which allows you to embed YouTube videos, and I think do subtitles as well, right? Like I/O.
The YouTube library. So that's that was announced. It's not yet available.
But it's not like I was gonna say it's not yet available. So keep an eye on developers.google.com.
Is there a workaround for right now?
For YouTube videos and captions?
Using a web view.
It's an embedded web view, most people.
Yeah.
But it's not
that'll
great.
work. That'll work. Actually, that'll probably rely on Flash, right? Or is it going to use HTML5?
HTML5.
HTML5.
HTML5
in web views is Android 3.0 or higher.
It's not a great experience, really. I'd say it wouldn't be worth at this point going down the path of writing that because this layer API is coming out.
Yeah, just hold tight. In terms of captions, I'm not sure if it supports. It may support.
We had it in iOS yet, so.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know whether that.
There's a difference between turning on captions in the viewport and getting a feed of the captions that you can display next to it in your UI.
Yeah. Let's just let's table this question until that library is released. Like we said, it was announced, but not yet available.
Hey there, before we move back to the moderator, we've got Boywali join us, if that's how you pronounce your name, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hi there. Have you got a question for us today, or have you just come in to say hello?
Hi.
Yes, we hear you. So, are you doing Android development at the moment? Or is there something you're working on?
Yeah. I'm doing Android development here in Nigeria.
Awesome.
Yeah. I'm developing an augmented reality application using the Android platform, using the camera location services.
Awesome.
Great. Do you have any questions, or any like technical questions, or like best practices questions, or anything like that?
Not at the moment. I just came to learn, to see what's up here.
Okay.
Excellent.
cool.
Well, thanks for dropping in. Just feel free to stay there. And
Okay.
if you do have any questions, just shout them out. The moderator is now complete, I think.
Wait, there seems to be one more somewhere in there.
Oh yeah, could you recommend a sample project to demonstrate the low-level media API? The best thing at the moment would be the YouTube videos again. The YouTube video from Google I/O this year on the low-level APIs has loads of samples in it and sample code and how to do it. Also, at the top of the classes for media codec in the API doc, there's a bunch of sample code in there as well. I'll try and post a link to that quickly.
I have another question if you can answer.
Great, go for it.
Let's hear.
Okay. Making a widget, home screen widget, and the main issue is when sometimes you do a pending intent if you want to do an on-click on the view, so you go back to the activity. But sometimes it happens that you click on the widget, you go back to the application, and you go back and forth for some like 4 or 5 clicks, and then when you click again on the widget on the home screen, you get an exception that you cannot send a pending intent.
Does it tell you why? Does it give any more of a stack trace?
That's the only, if you want, I can try and see just a second. You gave me.
Is this happening during development or with the production version of the app?
Same. It doesn't influence if it's on production or not, but the main issue is here it's I'm trying to make a distinct, unique intent each time I click on the button, so it won't happen again after the going back and forth from the context. But just a second, I'm looking for the stack.
So, are you creating a new task every time?
No, I'm not creating a new task. I'm creating a new intent, a new pending intent.
All right, but is that intent creating a new? So, for example, let's say you touch the widget and
you must use the flag create new task each time you use pending intent, or is there another option?
No, is that necessarily true? You have to
create GM?
What's that?
You have to create a new task every time you create a pending intent. It doesn't seem like that's a mandatory flag.
No, definitely not. Pending intents. I mean, that's the concept of it, right? That you can pass them around and other people can launch.
Yeah. I mean, just as an example, like in our design guidelines, we have this updated section of navigation, and it talks about, and this is not really development, specifically around the interaction and the design guidelines. It has this section that covers how to navigate into your app, deeply into your app from a widget or a notification. And the implication there is that when you jump into your app from a widget, you shouldn't be creating a new task every time, right? You shouldn't, like in your recents, when you touch on recents, you shouldn't see 4 or 5 different instances of your app.
No, you won't see. You'll see only one.
Okay.
You'll see only one instance on recents, but each time you create a pending intent, because you're not going from a context over a specific activity, you must declare the flag new task or a clear task and so on. And after a few back and forth and clicks, from going to inside the app, going back to home, exiting the app, finish all the application resources, and then going back to the widget and clicking again. After a few times, it just gives me the exception and trying to find the stack. I saved it on a text file. I just wanted to see.
You just paste the chat window here, it's fine.
Okay. Give me a few minutes and one time.
Yeah, you can get back to it.
Hey, Tara. Good to see you made it along this week. Hey, Tara. You're frozen. Can you hear me? Hey, hey.
Hello.
Any other questions?
Yeah, there's a new question from the moderator. We can have a quick look at that whilst we're waiting for the code to come through from your seat.
I think,
Tal, you've got some feedback coming through on your speakers there.
Oh, 1 second. Let me just know that it's
Just
there.
do.
Wait a second.
Yeah, any question? All right. Was it? Oh, should I read that?
was it intentional that shortcuts aren't part of the new Jelly Bean widget design guidelines? Since they live in the widget drawer in 4.0 plus, are you phasing them out, discouraging their use? No. Was it intentional that they were left out? They're not widgets. They're shortcuts. In terms of like what the user sees, we happen to place them in the same area because to a user they may not make a difference. But in terms of your design, I mean, shortcut design is. We probably should have another guideline for like what should be in the app drawer, what should go on the home screen. But it doesn't really belong in the widget design guidelines. It'd probably be in a separate guideline. So we don't treat them the same, although users may kind of understand them. They may have the same mental model for them, but yeah. So it's not intentional that they're not in the design guidelines altogether, but that's just a matter of priorities, whether or not we'll be able to add things like shortcuts, for example.
So I wouldn't read too much into it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're still pretty core. Like if you want to put a shortcut to your contacts and so on, that's still pretty core ability.
Yeah, they're incredibly useful.
So if we are running out of questions, we could always talk about. So last night updates to the design guide shipped. So has anyone seen that? Sorry.
You should talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Tell
Have you seen
us.
it?
I haven't seen it, no.
Tell us.
No,
I haven't
I've
seen
been
it either.
busy all day.
Tell us. Go.
Well, one of the things I thought was really interesting, if you now go to the action bar pattern in the design guide, there's a little bit of talk about the sliding drawer navigation pattern, which is gaining some traction. So as used in the Google Plus app or the YouTube app and many apps out there like Facebook and Spotify. So it's nice to see that starting to get formalized into a pattern, although there's a start, let's call it that.
Yeah. And the kind of the reference implementation that you should look at, not the implementation, sorry, the reference app that you should look at is the YouTube app. I believe that's the screenshot that we show in that design guideline. The Google Plus app does things a little differently, so we probably recommend looking at YouTube.
And there's new patterns for widgets, confirming and acknowledging help and accessibility. So,
and help includes tutorials. So like when to show tutorial, when not to show tutorial. Hint, you shouldn't really have to show tutorial. But yeah.
Yeah, well, it's generally better, I think. The goal is your UI is so intuitive that you don't need to have labels and tutorials and so on. But it's almost better to have a one-time tutorial to kind of like orientate people if you've got a lot of kind of complex behavior, rather than a lot of that labels in your UI the whole time, I'd say.
Any other changes you saw in there? In the design guideline?
I've not had a chance to do it
We've been busy today. We'll check them out tonight.
There are a couple of updates overall. I mean, it's also we added, for example, a lot of the graphics there had like the zoom and the Galaxy Nexus. We added the Nexus 7 in there for good measure.
Okay.
Into what, the device generator?
No, not the device generator. That's been there. But like some of the just basic high level graphics. So if you're showing the page to say product managers, then you'd be like, oh, what's that? Is that a 7-inch tablet? And you'd be like, yeah, we should plan for 7-inch tablets.
Boom, like
Because What else we got?
We got a new visitor in the Hangout. Hey there, Joe. Thanks for coming in. Oh, you're a bit quiet. I'm not sure if your microphone's muted.
Can't hear you.
He's typing. My audio isn't working. You can't hear us either. Okay. Well, you can type the question in the.
Hi, good here.
You can type the question in the chat window if you have one, and we can answer it. Read it out for you.
In the meantime, is there another question from the moderator up there? The GPS?
Have we considered? Yes, we have considered it. It's been discussed over and over again.
Read the question out.
Okay. Have we considered implementing a system which would allow the user to select if they wish to allow an individual app to write secure settings, e.g. enable GPS, to enable us developers to make an app with better UX? Yes, it's been discussed at length many, many times. The problem is just that there's always a trade-off between flexibility and tractability, and you give too many affordances, and all of a sudden you have chaos. You basically can't control the experience in any way. So I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that a lot of these design choices in the system were an attempt to find the right balance between giving the user enough control without overwhelming them with choices, and requiring the user to spend all their time making nitpicking, minute decisions about the administration of their device. That's for a classic example. That's why when you install an app, you either approve or disapprove all of the permissions all at once when you decide to install or not install the app, and then you don't have to revisit that decision again.
Yeah, and remember that, that's spot on. Remember that Android users aren't, by default, or aren't in general techies. So a lot of the features that you think are, oh my god, these are must-have features, how do you not have them? A lot of those features would be just downright confusing to the average end user. So you're absolutely right. It's always a trade-off between making something that kind of intimidates and alienates users and giving them enough control. So.
All right. And so questions come in on the G+ thread where Ruben.
Should we read Joe's?
Oh no, he's not.
Oh, sorry.
Can we have a better guide to contact syncing?
I say, so you're talking about the
sync provider.
Yeah, where essentially you pump in all the information, then the Android system will aggregate them into the contacts that you have, as well as any kind of social media contacts that you've got, all those things. Is that right?
Yeah,
there's a great series of blog posts out there which I often refer to myself.
Yeah.
If you search for C99, so Sam Steele, the developer from Last.fm, he did a series of blog posts which are excellent. Is there something that those that series of blog posts isn't covering, or you would just like to see that level of detail in the official docs?
Also, there's a sample sync adapter which does all of that. It does contact syncing. It does social stream APIs as a ice cream sandwich. Sync adapter, authenticator. It does pretty much all of that.
Yeah.
Joseph, thanks. Looks like
You're welcome.
Cool. Excellent.
Okay, so going back to this question asked in the thread, so Ruben asks, I know the W3C spec for devices API is still in flux, but I wonder if there will be any support in Android 2.2 and 2.3 devices for it once the spec has been fleshed out. So devices API, for those who not know, is a browser API for allowing access to the camera and images and so on as an input type. So my initial reaction is probably no, because that would require an update to the browser, and the browser, as you know, is part of the system image of the device, so we're not able to kind of update that outside of a firmware update. So I would be very surprised to see that happen, unfortunately. Maybe other browsers, so I know Chrome is ICS onwards, but maybe some other browsers might be able to offer support there, but not with the stock Android browser or the WebView, I don't think.
Okay.
We've got some new attendees.
People flooding in now. Oren and Johannes and Yossi, I can't find the trace. Okay, maybe the next office hours. We will be back next Wednesday at 2 p.m.
Yeah, Yossi, that sounds like the kind of thing that you should probably post into a Stack Overflow post and then link to it in our moderator. That sounds like the right way to attack this.
Can Johannes ask a question regarding native audio? Do you have anyone here?
You can try.
Native audio guy?
You might be better off.
Lots of blank faces.
OpenSL, yes.
Okay, hi guys.
Hey, you can ask it anyway.
So this is a question I had for a long time now. So basically, your documentation says that you support the OpenSL audio library for 3D audio and some stuff around that. But if I implement a sound listener and a sound source inside of OpenSL, and I try to assign a 3D space to that, I get this ominous error 12, which says this feature is not supported, which is weird because your documentation says you support 3D audio, but if you try to implement it, it's not working.
That is the kind of question I would refer to the expertise of Stack Overflow on.
No, I would say come to if you can, stay up for the US office hours tonight. Some guys from the media team who would have written our implementation of that are going to be joining our US colleagues, so if you can come back in 8 hours' time, it's probably the best place to get an answer to that question.
Okay, so when is that exactly?
It's 2 p.m. Pacific time.
You can see it if you go to
So in 8 hours from now.
developers.google.com/live.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, well, sorry to...
Yeah, sorry
to refer you
No
off.
problem. Stack Overflow can't help either.
No.
No, I can see it in the Google groups. They have the same thing. I tried to use OpenGLES. I get unsupported error 12. And Mick says, it depends on which profile flags the library was compiled with. So the fact that you get an unsupported error probably means they didn't include the audio effect in that device. Interesting. But yeah, it's best to just ask the team this evening.
Okay, thank you.
Or ask it in their moderator. You can go through the developers.com link to get to the moderator. And you can just type it into there, and then you can watch the video back tomorrow. Hopefully they'll answer it. Al Sutton, where did he come from?
There he is.
Sneaky.
I sneak in when you're not looking, Rich.
So Al's just posted the link in the chat window on the left there to the show for tonight.
Hang on, Ninja.
So you can hang out, Ninja. Al Sutton has joined in. And yeah, having the low-level media team there is definitely going to help.
You're back home, Al. I thought you were in London this morning.
I got back about half an hour ago, so I've been fighting Chromos, which doesn't do Hangouts on air, so it took me a bit to get in.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I got a question for you guys, if you want one.
Yes.
Yeah, Al. Feel free to ask.
I've been working on an application that basically turns the user's phone into a gamepad. So you can connect to another device using Bluetooth, and so you can play on your tablet and use your phone as a controller. What's the best way to handle user-defined layouts? Is it to use a canvas view, or should I be looking at using one of the layout managers and restricting users' positions for buttons and things like that to what the layout manager can handle?
So you want to allow users to specify where all the buttons are on the tablet screen?
Drag and
Absolutely.
drop. Exactly.
Yep.
Right.
So if they want to have the control pad, the thumb pad on the left or the right, they can move it over.
Speaking as
things
a
like that.
user of a few apps that have user-defined layouts, I definitely prefer the canvas approach because what you end up with when you try to fit things into the layout manager is invariably a grid that you can drop buttons on, and it's very limiting. So I've actually played around with a few remote control apps that let you control your TV. Let you move buttons around, but the grid isn't really conducive, especially if you're making a gamepad and you want to use familiar patterns like maybe the little diamond of ADXY buttons on the side of the D-pad, and these things don't work if you line them up in a grid, or if they do, they're spaced way too far apart and it'd be really awkward. So, like speaking as a user, I would like your app better if it used Canvas.
The other thing
Users
is,
are the important ones.
if you wanted to do like drag and drop with a non-canvas, like let's say you did something similar to like an absolute layout, like a custom layout that was effectively an absolute layout that positioned things at X and Y coordinates,
as you were dragging to show real-time updates, you'd have to basically do a layout pass every single drag, right? So you'd have to re-trigger a layout, even if it's just within that view, just within that view group. It may be pretty slow, I guess. So I think just the canvas is going to give you more flexibility and less pain altogether.
Cool, thanks.
It's like I find like some of the games which have like a D-pad input, the ones I like the most are the ones which don't force you to have a particular position, but they when you put your finger down, it just centers on wherever you place your finger. So I think like the Mad Finger games like Shadowgun and Dead Trigger do this, right? And so it'd be kind of cool if you offered something like that. So yeah, because you don't have that physical anchor point to like locate with your finger, just letting you touch down and then where you move relatively from that would be kind of cool. But just nice.
I was thinking along those lines. One of the things that I've got to take into account is the application's actually got a window that's a feedback window from the game itself. So if you're playing, say for example, on a games console connected to a TV that runs Android, the game itself can feed back information to just be displayed on the controller pad. So I'm trying to make sure that they can be positioned where that information can still be seen. So there might be some limitations, but the idea of centering it on where you push could be quite cool.
Cool.
Thanks, Nick.
No worries.
Thanks, guys.
Excellent. Good question. Cheers out. Another thing's popped into the moderator whilst we've been talking.
How should a sync provider behave that syncs files or anything not accessible using a content resolver? I'm not sure I understand the question.
Blank
You
face.
delivered it so well.
1, 2,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blank face. And an English accent from the book. How should a sync provider behave?
I got another question if you need one. Maybe?
Okay, we'll think about that one whilst Johannes asks the next question. Go ahead.
Okay, so is it possible to override the GSM stack for implementing your own phone application that is not only a dialer but a complete phone? For sending, for example, GSM codes without getting a dialog box as a result?
The only access to the telephony, or you don't have any access really to the telephony or the radio. But you can use SIP, right? I mean, if you're...
No, but he wants to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So hash code.
Specifically asking about the GSM stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you write your own Android ROM.
Custom ROM, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Outside of doing your own custom ROM,
Okay.
the AOSP ROMs, it's going to be a tricky thing. That's all secure.
How should a sync provider behave? I'm still trying to parse this question. How should a sync provider behave that syncs files or anything not accessible? Okay, so maybe
Is anything not accessible using a content resolver?
maybe just trying to block the content provider or a sync provider from being accessible by other apps.
Yeah. I don't know. I think you can do anything because like
So export equals false. Will that even work? So basically, a sync provider is a service, right? It's
I think what he's trying to ask is, if you've got a sync provider that's trying to synchronize something for your application that you can't feed to it via a content provider, is there a recommended way of doing it? Because he's talking about files, but I know there's a method in a content provider of reading files. Is there one to write files as well?
I have no clue.
yeah. I think.
So first of all, we're not talking about sync adapters, right? We're talking about sync providers.
I think he's talking about sync adapters, but let me have a look at what the class is.
Yeah, if it's sync, I don't know what a sync provider is. So
But it
sync
just has a
adapter.
perform sync method, right? Where you can do anything.
Yeah, so sync adapters are the only correlation, the only way in which sync adapters interact with content providers is via the authority. It's just a link, right? Sync adapters don't inherently have to even use a provider at all. Like there's no like API that's specific to sync adapters.
That's
and how
what I'm
they
thinking.
work with.
Yeah. Yeah. So well, I think we should move on unless Marcus can give us a little bit more context. I don't think that's a question.
Yeah, oh, Matthias, hello. Thanks for joining us today. He says, any news on this issue? Oh, that. Code.google.com. I'm getting bad reviews thanks to this issue. Let's click on it. It says, I have set an Android install location to internal only in my paid app. The APK itself installs to the data apps it should. However, Google Play installs the app to man a sec. This causes a major problem for my app as it's primarily an Android service. As the service is generated before a sec is mounted, it can't find my service and removes it for all associated accounts including the data.
It's a problem with encrypted APK, and it's fixed internally. It just hasn't shipped.
Okay, where did the window go?
So I guess the unfortunate answer is this falls under we can't talk release dates because we don't know them, and they'll probably change.
But the news on the issue is that we do know about it, and we know what it's caused by, and it's being worked on. Sorry about that.
Sorry, we can't share anymore.
No, generally that won't be. That's fine. But the Play Store updates separate to Android and the Android firmwares, so they can push updates out at any time that they want. So as soon as they fix it, I'm sure they'll push that out once it's tested, and it'll just start working without you having to make any changes to your app.
I'm not sure about that. I think it might actually be part of the install process.
Package
Package
manager?
manager actually installs a thing setting the incorrect permissions on it. But
the other good news is that in general, if you look at ice cream sandwich, if you look at I guess gingerbread, I mean the very first version that gets released doesn't stick around for too long. So like ice cream sandwich right now 4.0.1 and 4.0 and 4.0.2, they're not really sticking around so much. 4.0.3 and 4.0.4 are getting a lot of traction. So I mean, this is not like an absolute statement by any means, but just historically, the very first version of a major dessert name release hasn't really stuck around for too long. Its immediate successor has really
have an MR release or something.
Yeah.
MR1 in months.
Is there an update to allowing all developers to reply to comments? No, there's no update on that either. Sorry, Joe.
That is rolling out to more developers, though. I've talked to a few who've received it in the last week, so it looks like it's more widely available.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the team's beta testing it, so I think, yeah.
Beta. You Brits in
What are you, beta testing it?
Beta.
Beta test that.
Don't forget a beta with your data. That's what I always remember.
B-A-Y-T-A beta.
Beta. MPERT is asking the moderator, is there an API for pulling all the application data out of the Play Store? Nope. That's pretty definitive. What's the best way to have this is from Lucky Otham from Brazil. What's the best way to have a horizontal scrolling list or grid on Android, since both list view and grid view are only vertical?
Write your own.
Write your own. Use a view pager. Potentially, view pages work quite well for this, depending on how big you're going to have.
What about the gallery?
Gallery is now deprecated.
Is it? Cool.
Is it officially deprecated? Are we officially deprecated?
Let me
that'd be great.
It's like that.
Look at that excitement.
Gallery can work in some cases, but the physics are all, like the touch physics are all screwed up in Gallery.
Could you just put a linear layout in a scroll
I
view?
thought it was.
You could use a horizontal scroll. The good thing about list view and grid view is that they have all that fancy recycling stuff.
Right.
So like if you have like a 10,000 item horizontal scroll view, is it deprecated?
This class is deprecated. The widget is no longer supported. Other horizontally scrolling widgets include horizontal scroll view and view pager from the support library.
So if you want like an actual horizontal list view that does all the fancy recycling, we don't have one, but there are third-party projects.
Yeah, just Google horizontal list view, Android, there's a ton out there. But I'd say view pager gets you a lot of the way as well.
One other interesting thing about ViewPager. So ViewPager also it doesn't do the recycling, but it follows the adapter pattern. So you can implement the recycling yourself if you want to. It's not very complicated. One thing I'll say is that in the recent versions of the support library, I think as of R8 or later, Pager adapter has this new method called getPageWidth, which lets you create pages that are not full width. So you can create a page that is 25% of the screen width, and so you'll see 4 pages at a time, or a page that is 50% of the screen width, so you'll see 2 at a time, and the touch physics work well there. There's no inertial fling or anything like that, if you guys are interested in that.
Advance one page at a time, so it'd be 4, next 4, next 4.
Yeah. Well, actually, you advance 1 page at a time, so it would go from like
50, you'd get 1 to the left.
Yeah, so you look at like items 1 and 2, and then go 1 more, and then you'd see items 2 and 3, not 3 and 4.
You do a full width scroll.
Oh, actually, that's a good question. Let's check it out.
But it's view pages, so you definitely, if it's a 10,000 item list, you can't just do a whoosh,
Right.
100 and shoot by.
Right. The other thing is, if you're quite fancy with render script, there's a example widget called Carousel View. That's somewhere. If you just search for Carousel Example Android, it'll show you how to do like a Google Music style 3D carousel. Not so much horizontal as it is 3-dimensional, but yet another.
It's linked to Google I/O talk from last year, right?
Yeah, something like that.
But
Right.
there's 2 versions of the render script carousel. One that's actually understandable and quite boring, and one that's 3D and looks amazing.
Mm.
And the sample code the sample code for render script has one version that you may be able to understand, but the music player one I think is 20,000 lines of render script in one file, in one .rs file.
Well, it's meant to be like flexible, customizable, right? Where the higher level API, you just specify basic things like.
Yeah, don't go to the .rs files.
Yeah.
They'd be dragging.
Unless you want your eyes to bleed.
That's Weeping eyes. That's an Americanism.
Also, it's not worth learning because it's deprecated. So yeah.
Also, so, yes.
There was some chat going on in the sidebar about good wireframing tools, which I know is one of Roman's favourite topics. I'd say pencil and paper or Fluid UI, the 2 I tend to use. Do you have any other?
We have official stencils for OmniGraffle, Adobe Fireworks. Adobe Fireworks is very good if you want to do interactive wireframes, like where you can click a button and actually flip to the page that button would lead to in real life.
Just keep saving because Fireworks is so flaky.
Yeah. Also, there's Photoshop stencils. So, outside of the official stencils kit for Fireworks, Photoshop, and OmniGraffle, if you're to use any other tool, Pencil for Firefox, like you mentioned, they just added a Android 4.0 stencil kit built in, or just available for download. And Fluid UI also comes with an Android 4.0 stencil kit.
Excellent. Questions flying in now. We've got 8 minutes left, so I'm not sure we're going to get through them all. But Yossi, who is still working on his dialogue, his account manager select, whatever, has asked, is there a way of showing progress on a dialogue, like in the activity window, loading web page?
Oh, like a window feature?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the same as window feature, just showing the web page loading progress on the top of the dialogue below the title or something like that.
You'd have to implement it yourself. So the window feature is specific to activity windows.
Yeah.
Like, for example, dialogues can't even have action bars. That's partly because of for the same reason. So you'd have to just have your own progress bar and update it yourself.
So the best way to implement it is to add a progress bar above the web view and show the progress as you go along loading the URL.
Yeah. In general, you're saying web view inside of a dialogue, and that's already kind of starting to scare me.
Yeah.
For anything.
No, it's a authentication web view. If you can see it, I don't know. Just
Is this an OAuth?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I don't want permission to that.
just showing the user. I don't know if you can see it. Or something.
So in general, don't be afraid of full screen windows. Users have awful memory, but not that awful. Like they'll remember.
Yeah, I have a full window OAuth showing the progress bar and everything, but I think it's more fluent to the user and more comprehensive to show when you're using 2 panes. Then I'm clicking on the left pane and showing the dialog, and then after selecting in the dialog or making the authentication, then the right pane shows the content you want to go and fetch for the user.
Okay.
I think it's a better UI flow for the user.
Okay. Yeah. So in that case, you probably just have to make your own progress bar.
Yeah, as Joe says in the side bar, I would just have linear layout with a progress bar above the web view myself.
One thing is that the progress bar has built-in padding. So there'll be actually on ICS and even Honeycomb, the tail end, or I guess the head of the progress bar is actually a glow, So it has some built-in padding to account for that. So if you use a linear layout, then your web view will appear below the glow.
So maybe do a frame layout and put it on top of it.
You may want to have a frame layout and have the progress bar neatly, like the middle of the progress bar aligned with the top edge of the web view. That's what Chrome and the built-in browser do.
Okay, thanks.
I'm searching for Boyd now. Nick knew what it was. It's a Twitter client for Android, right?
Oh,
Are
yeah.
you on the
Yeah,
Boyd
yeah.
team there, Joe? Oh, you can't talk, can you? Sorry. You
can
have to do like hand signals.
Thumbs up, thumbs down, mine. Sounds like.
Oh, 902 results. Hopefully one of them.
Yeah,
is
Boyd
yours.
is
Why
pretty popular.
can't Does Boyd talk the next 7, Joe?
I've got a quick
Ah.
Android question that I wanted to ask. Where can I find Google Wallet? I tried to find
In
it
America.
in.
Wait, really? You guys?
No, we don't have Google Wallet. Sorry.
Well, that sucks for you guys.
Why not?
No one's rolled it out here yet.
It's like
Because
Get on top of that.
deals and carriers
Sorry.
and
I'm asking because it's actually started working in Israel. Some shops, some people managed to actually pay with Google Wallet, which is quite funny.
It's all based on MasterCard's PayPass, which is a global standard, so you can do it in the UK as well, in McDonald's and places like that.
Yeah. So
What you need to do is,
and
if,
that's where you find it.
if you can get hold of a Galaxy Nexus or a device for which the stock firmware is produced, you can put the US firmware from the Google developer site on it, put a US SIM in the phone, and you'll get full working Google Wallet functionality. If it doesn't have a US SIM in, it won't work. And you
But
guess what I picked up on my trip to the States?
Yeah, we tried it a few times on Google I/O, and then we found out that you need to.
Yeah, I've seen posts from Paul O'Brien buying his Greg's pasties with his Nexus 7. And,
but I tried it from the market website, sorry, the Play website, the full website on the PC, and I even faked my IP so I can access to the US store, and I didn't find it there, so I can only do it from a Galaxy Nexus.
So you want us to teach you how to hack the Play Store? So
No, I'm not asking you. No, but I said I didn't even find it on
And
the
that's the end of today's broadcast.
But IP isn't. I don't think IP is the only signal we use to determine location.
Yes, we list all the different ones now, so you can just break them.
But isn't Wallet a system application? So that is maybe the reason why it's not available in the Play Store.
It's available via the Play Store, but it's triggered off of the SIM inside the device. So unless you've got a US carrier SIM in the device, your chances of installing and being usable are absolutely none.
Yeah, but if you have a Nexus 7 tablet, then you don't have a SIM. So basically, it's based on the location the Play Store app.
Yeah, I'm going to say this isn't an Android development question.
That's not. I wonder if there's anything else.
2 minutes. 2 minutes.
Does anyone in the Hangout have anything that they really want to say in the last 2 minutes? Because thank you very much for all joining us.
First of all, thank you. And one last question. How can I get my app featured? What is the best way?
We'll have to drink now. If anyone asks that in a Hangout, we'll have to drink. Someone asks it every single week.
Yeah, I know.
Just so you can drink the double, how do I get my Google Plus page verified?
Good thing for the featuring, if you think you've got a great app, is maybe submit it to the Friday review.
The Friday App Clinic.
Friday App Clinic. My bad. Had to rewire my brain. So yeah, that's a good way to get it in front of people. Like another way is just like how are you promoting it at the moment?
Basically, we're doing some campaigns on different websites and different stores, like on Samsung Store, on the Amazon, and so on, with affiliates. And we wanted to see how to get our app featured in the Play Store, because that's the best way to get our app be more visible. Because we already have more like 6.5 million downloads already.
Wow.
Yeah, and
What's the app called?
Uvu.
What?
Uvu.
Uvu.
Wait, the video player, the video conferencing.
Yeah.
OOV00.
Social video chat.
Sorry.
Yeah, I know that.
That's the one?
Isn't there a checklist somewhere of things that people should do to help it get
Well, we
featured?
do know what not to do to not get not featured, because that was a Google I/O.
Yeah.
Also a blog post by Natasha Bach that talks about image guidelines, like your playlisting guidelines, like your feature graphic, your titles, your descriptions. There are some things that are just very simple things to make sure you have.
We don't actually offer a definitive list of do X, Y, and Z and you will get featured, but we provide a wealth of information on things that will get you not featured. And
Such as using an iPhone layout.
Right. And then there's
Oh.
some hurdles that you need to clear before featuring even becomes consideration. So Dan Galpin and Ian Lewis gave a talk at I/O. That was
aimed at games, but a lot of it is 10 things every game developer should know, right?
Right, but a good chunk of that was things that will get you not featured on Google Play. Also, like you said, Natasha Bach's post on what was it on the resources that you use and like looking good in Google Play.
Yeah, it's like dimensions for your promotional graphics.
It was just talking about feature
like
graphic.
one mistake a lot of people do is they have to upload a small application graphic, and then they're told they have to upload a larger banner size one. So they just blow up the first one. It's this huge blurry mess that we would never put on the front page of Google Play.
No, what's worse is they say, hey, it's 1024 pixels wide by like 500 high.
Just
So
take a
I'll
screenshot of our IDE and paste it in.
Well, they just
Right.
put like tons of text in there, and then when we want to feature the application, because that's going to get like shrunk down from this big on the website to this big on the phone, like it's just illegible. So things like that. But I would say from a 2-minute look at your screenshots that a little bit of application of Android design guidelines would certainly help any potential featuring.
We're doing a redesign for all the app because the main issue was before I got to Uvu was that they used
So maybe when that's ready.
most of the features from the iPhone in order to do a cross-platform. When you want to do a fluent cross-platform UI. And when I came to Uvu, we started working on the design guidelines and all of that, and that's what we're doing right now. We're implementing a new version to be published in the market in the next few weeks, and that will be a better design, and hopefully the next version will be even better.
So that sounds like great. Like, so once you have this new version kind of launched, maybe you could time a big push around that. So if you try and get, pick up some play in the media, maybe get some advertising around the application, and then submit it to the Friday Clinic as well, and we can take a look at it. So if you try and time all the push around your relaunch, that could be a good time.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, we've gone over time, but thank you all very much for joining in today. Those of you on YouTube as well who have been watching the stream, thanks for joining this massive crowd of us, all 6 of us today over here in London, and we'll see you all again same time next week. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
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 Bye.